Good evening and welcome to MTG Profits. This is episode 13. My name is Devin. I'm joined by my co-host Andy.
Hey, everybody.
And this week we're going to be talking, we're going to call this Simic Week. So we're going to discuss a little bit about the Simic Guild. I guess before we get into that, I should probably reference that if you haven't checked out the YouTube page, please feel free to do that. Also, the webpage at mtgprofits.com, no dash, just all one word, mtgprofits.com, for just more great information.
So please and all our picks and things are listed out there, so check it out. More content always on the way. I know it's still coming soon on some things, but don't worry. Just keep checking back.
Lots of juicy goodies for you guys.
Yes.
So I have to... excuse myself in advance. I'm coming down with a little bit of a cold, so hopefully this won't turn out too bad, and I'll be able to keep it to a relative minimum for the cast, and hopefully it goes pretty well. We've got a couple of things to talk about today. We're going to focus a little bit. We're going to start our series of more individual focus on some of the guilds for the upcoming guilds, I should say, for the Ravnica Alliance. So maybe to get a little bit of insight and advanced ideas prior to the set's release to hopefully profit from the upcoming set.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
we'll start preparations for, what is it, Ravnica Allegiance?
I believe so. Ravnica Alliance or some such. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So first we'll touch on a couple of news items. And,
lots of things in the news here lately to catch up on.
Absolutely. I know talking a little bit about Keyforge, that's the new hype, the other Richard Garfield game. People have been going crazy about this. I don't know if you're aware, but there's been a lot of excitement over the horsemen in these decks.
I have seen that. Yeah, these specific horsemen. I guess they're is it the deck or the card?
I believe both. Yeah. The I guess it's the rare card in the decks, and
decks. Yeah.
People are starting to. I wouldn't say invest. I would say speculate, and they're going crazy, hoping that since this is the first edition of a Richard Garfield game, that these will be like the alphas of the future. And so they're trying to get in on the ground floor and jacking those prices up relatively quickly.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of the stuff was sold out.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, the Horsemen, I guess some of those decks are going for what, $100 to $200 on eBay?
eBay, yep.
So yeah, people are making a run at this and then seeing if it's going to be worth some money. And
yeah, I would caution strongly against such a maneuver. If there are those of you out there thinking about that, I think maybe it's one thing to have fun and play the game. I would certainly not consider it an investable product. So we're not anywhere close to that. So many games, so many card games have come and gone. And people say, oh, this is a Richard Garfield game. Well, he's made several that have flopped since Magic. He's still looking for that magic. So realistically, I wouldn't call him a one-hit wonder when it comes to card creation, but because he did have some success with Netrunner, and but I want to say he's developed I think is it 4 or 5 games, I believe.
Several. I mean, as well as the board games as well. He's had too.
Yep. So I think I advise extreme caution when thinking about using Keyforge as an investable product. I don't think it is an investable item. I would strongly urge against it. And I don't have anything against Richard Garfield. I think he's great. I mean, he's the inventor of probably the best card game of all time. So, and every time he touches the set, the sets tend to be good. Like anytime they bring him back, he's just got a lot of built-in creativity. And, I think most recently, what was it, Dominaria? He had a little bit of a hand in that. And that was one of the most fun sets in recent memory. And I think prior to that, it was the original Ravnica, not the Return to Ravnica, but... and still one of the most loved sets of all time, and so He's really he's got a lot of creativity, and I think a lot of the creativity has died at Wizards of the Coast, but
Yeah, it does seem to be have kind of declined.
certainly petered off, and
Yeah.
unfortunate.
I would agree with you too. I don't think it's the time to jump in on this. It's really too soon to tell, and like you said,
May
he's
not
had
be
other
around for 2
games.
years.
Yeah, exactly. These card games are very tough to actually stick, let's say, and actually have a long life and continue on. I mean, they seem to
Gaining
be up and
traction.
down.
Yeah,
Very
really
difficult.
tough. Really
Very
tough.
difficult. I think they have such steep competition. And especially with all the digital formats and online games, really, really tough to compete against that.
Absolutely.
So we'll see if it sticks around. Like Devin said as well, still no reason not to play and try it out. I think its actual release date was just before Thanksgiving. I think the week before Thanksgiving. I think November 15th is when it actually released.
Yeah, you've had the opportunity to play several times.
I have, yeah. I actually attended a pre-release event for it, and I had no experience with the game whatsoever. I hadn't played before the event. I hadn't even read the rules. I didn't have any of the cards or anything like that. So I literally learned the rules about an hour before playing, and I actually played my very first game during the event, and which was the case for many of the people there. And there was a decent crowd. I would say probably 15 to well, yeah, maybe 15 to 20 people.
It's kind of a lot for your locals, though, correct?
It is, and
Yeah.
a lot of those were, Magic players who would come out, and there was a lot of interest. As far as the game goes, I'd really have to play it some more. It's definitely a different style. If you're familiar with Magic, I think it'd be very easy for you to pick up on it. A lot of the same concepts, having creatures and casting spells. It is nice that you don't have to worry about mana in this game. You basically can cast as much of that type of house's cards as you want during your turn. So you don't have to worry about any sort of not having enough mana to cast your spells. You just have to be a little bit more selective on what you pick to cast. As far as the fun factor, I mean, I would say the games last a lot longer than Magic games, it seems. At least the games I played, I'd say a single game of Keyforge lasts as long as about several games of Magic.
I'm
So
not as
it's more
fond of
lengthier
that.
game. And the pro or con, depending on how you look at it, there is no optimization of your decks. You have one deck and you play with that deck, and that's it.
I think that's going to seriously limit its collectability.
I would think so. I would think that would be a detriment over time, unless, really giving you the only other thing for you to do is just buy more decks. But
yeah,
I think it's definitely fun. I mean, just, I wouldn't say be in a super hurry to rush out and buy it automatically quickly, but check it out. If you like Magic, if you, enjoyed Richard Garfield's games, you want to try something different, check out Keyforge. It's fun. Give it a try,
Yeah. I'm always a fan of trying new things, new games. So I think, and I like competition in the marketplace. I think it can only be good for the players, period. End of story.
Exactly. And I think to support that too, I think you mentioned the fact that, what was it, on the release day or something, when you had the app, which you can get their app and register your decks. There was something like 80,000 decks registered or something.
Yeah, within 24 hours there was 80,000 decks registered, which is close to about $1 million worth. And one night's pretty nice.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I would imagine that the amount of decks registered versus the amount of decks purchased. I would imagine that at a very conservative guesstimate that the amount of decks purchased would have easily doubled the amount of decks registered. So,
yeah. So definitely interest has taken off here.
Absolutely. How much of that do you think is because of the Richard Garfield name? Do you
probably.
think a lot of it?
I'm sure that had a huge impact. That people saw his name, card game, new game, something completely different as far as card games go with the non-customizable aspect. Certainly helped.
Absolutely.
Like I said, now it's just gonna. Now's the time to see how long it'll actually last.
Yeah, well, I guess it's something to keep tabs on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess one of our other pieces of news, which is I find amusing and mildly disheartening at the same time, is I think we had talked about this earlier, but not in the podcast. But a group of artists have banded together to essentially boycott all the GPs in 2019, or I should say all the Magic Fests in 2019, because I guess they're changing the name to. Although they were changing the name, but I haven't heard anything since the original announcement of the name change. So I don't know if they're technically changing the name anymore after they ran into that snafu where the name had already been licensed and owned by another company that runs Magic Fest. It's funny, they didn't even do a Google search before they put that out there.
That seems kind of weak.
God, super weak. You know, you wonder who's working over at these places. Like, would you not just pop into Google and just type in Magic Fest and see if anything pops up?
You would think maybe just even a cursory look to see.
Good God, what the hell's going on over there? Do they not have interns that would do basic shit?
Yeah, that's pretty basic. If you're going to name something, make sure that name's not already being used.
Registered.
Yeah.
But classic, par for the course. Wizards not really doing a good job, or doing a half-assed job at best. I think it's not. We shouldn't be surprised. Let me put it that way.
Yeah. So Grand Prix is now Magic Fest.
Yeah, that was tentatively what they were going to rename the Grand Prix to. Okay. And that, I believe, is part of part of WotC's pivot away from professional play, more towards casuals. So they've been sort of for quite some time actually trying to pivot away from professional players and more towards the catering towards the kitchen table players, which which is their bread and butter. I don't deny that. Sure. But I remember years ago they canceled the Pro Tour and people went ape shit over that, and when they brought it back they were like, our bad. Then they changed the Pro Points. And then to something that makes you sort of have to grind nonstop if you're a player, and then they took away the paid invites, so they've been slowly grinding away at the professional. I shouldn't say professional, I should say promotional.
Okay.
But they've been because for years they've always WotC has considered the Pro Tour a promotional tour, not a professional tour. Gamers have considered a professional tour, But so they've been grinding away at that for the longest. So now they want to pivot away from Grand Prix and their invites and things of that nature, and they want to try to focus more on the side events. Focus on all the other things you can do.
Sure.
You can see cosplayers. You can you can see artists. You can buy things at the vendors. You can do all these sorts of things.
Make it a more, I don't know, more audience-friendly event.
Yeah. So, I can't really fault them for trying to do that. But it's funny how they, all the things that they do, don't really promote that per se.
Yeah. And I mean, but just to jump in too, it's like as a casual player, that's more interesting to me to have some event that is, has drafts and has sealed events and has Two-Headed Giant and it has artists and cosplayers and all these other things. I really am not as interested in the professional aspect of it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I sometimes I'll go to the GPs and not really even actually attend the GP. I mean, not actually play in the Grand Prix. I'll do all side effects. I mean, because realistically, that's another thing. They'll jack the freaking price up to $80. And then they wonder why people don't play in the Grand Prix.
Yeah, the pricing does seem a little unreasonable.
Even at $35 back in the day, I was like, well, I don't know if it's worth it. $85, it's a no-brainer. It's not worth it to me.
Exactly.
No-brainer.
You're not getting that play mat and
one
promo card or whatever is not worth the entry fee.
Heck no, not even close. So.
But I think along those lines was that the strike about the artists, and I guess there's been a complaint now that they're boycotting the Magic Fest.
Yeah. So apparently, the story is that well, now Channel Fireball has an exclusive monopoly on all the GPs. So they've changed what they're going to essentially provide for the artists, and the artists had a reasonable, what I felt were relatively reasonable. I wouldn't say
Sure.
demands because they were more like observations slash complaints.
Hmm.
And historically, they would be, for example, they'd be flown out to the GP, and they'd be put up in a hotel, and they could then show up and have their, you know, hang out at their table, visit the,
Yeah.
have the fans visit, and it's always been lucrative, I think, for the artists because
Yeah, they'd
people
have
tend to purchase prints and pay to have their
place
cards
to store
signed.
their materials and everything while at the event.
Yeah, and I think so. I think realistically, the artists make money by going, but historically they've been provided a location at least to sit and hang out, and and they were they'd be flown in and be given a hotel room, and apparently that has changed, and now they have to actually pay for their booth, or they're given a tiny table, from my understanding,
Yeah,
and
it's
they're
a
and they yeah they're
very
and
small
then they can
space.
pay to upgrade their booth, and so not only are they no longer being flown out, they're no longer apparently being given hotel rooms, and they're no longer essentially they're no longer being catered to in any way, shape, or form. It's all on the
Exactly.
artists, and I do think that is a mistake because I think you know and the artists are not for everybody. Not everybody enjoys that.
No,
I do. I like going to get my cards signed. I consider it a fun
exactly.
part of the event. But I could see how a lot of people think, who cares? But it is a little bit of a draw for some people because it's
Sure.
something you can't do everywhere.
Uh-huh.
You know, and
Yeah.
I exactly, and I think
But
yeah. I think you could be reasonable in saying that, hey, by me being an artist, by me being present, it draws extra people, and
sure.
I'm providing almost a service here. So I don't think it's unreasonable for you to provide me a space to do that and fly me in if I am one of your honored guests, so to speak.
Yeah, and I thought that was an interesting distinction that was made. I in some of the online comments and whatnot about the idea of being a guest versus being a vendor. I think was the two.
Yeah, they're starting to be treated more like vendors and not as guests.
Exactly.
You
And
know.
in, I guess, other types of industries, like any sort of Comic-Con or anything like that, any celebrities will be treated as actual guests, and they'll get flown
Yes.
out and they'll have paid appearances and they receive compensation for their time.
Yes,
Uh,
exactly. And
whereas,
the
yeah,
artists are not really asking for compensation. They're just asking for their basic costs to be covered.
exactly. And I think to the whole thing, the artists attending these events, and I think this is maybe from the beginning. I mean, they're not making huge amounts of money. You're not thinking they're gonna go here and they're just gonna be walking out fast with cash. No, they're probably lucky to break even and get a little bit extra on the side. So
I think it depends. I think if their flight is paid for and their hotel room is paid for, I think they are going to walk out with some pretty fat stacks. I would be surprised if they don't walk away with $1,000 cash in hand at the end of a day. I would be surprised if it's less than that.
I guess if maybe we should say if you're getting that compensation, if you had the flight paid for and the hotel
That's
paid for.
exactly right.
But if
Yes.
it was like
If you had to pay for the
traditionally
flight
on
and the
your own,
hotel, yeah, you're going to break even. Yeah.
and I think there's two other things too that they were saying, well, we're being asked to do more, like should do art classes or other kinds of uh, pieces during the event, which or which is extra responsibility.
I think that's
And
very unreasonable to
yeah,
ask
that's
for them to provide a
unreasonable.
service for free. Yeah.
And it takes time. Going to the event, doing the any sort of drawing or doing any extra classes or whatever at the event. This is all time that they could have be spending, at home in their studio working on other projects, actually making money.
Yeah. Or even just doing whatever.
Yeah,
Their time is valuable. They're the guest. You should at least provide them a space, pay to bring them in, give them a freaking hotel room. You know, that's all.
Exactly.
That's all you really need to do. But apparently, that's too much to ask. So, you know,
Yeah.
it's funny because ever since the monopolization of the GPs, they seem to be really going downhill. They're getting way more expensive. You know, like I said, in the last like 2 or 3 years, they've gone from roughly, you know, $30 to attend to like $80. You know, they're charging the vendors twice as much to have the vending booths. A guy at my locals was telling me that. He said that they're not going this year because, or they've been there for the last 2 years, and they've had booths at the GP Vegas, and they said they're no longer going to do that because the booth price went to almost 10 grand for the.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he said there's no way that he says, you know, he said it was 5 before, and so, you know, they would make, you know, like say $7,500. And he didn't tell me exactly.
Sure.
But he did tell me how much it cost. So,
Yeah.
you know, I'm assuming $7,500. But because what he had told me was at 10 grand, he wouldn't be making any money. It wouldn't be worth it to go, you know. So, because, you know, you got to staff the booth. You got to, you know.
You got to staff. You got to bring all your products.
You got to bring
things. Pay for your flights. You got to pay for your room and board and food and everything else. Yeah.
So when the cost of so it seems like the Channel Fireball is milking it to the absolute maximum. You know, they're milking the customers, they're basically the player base, by jacking up the rates for the GP. They're milking their vendors by doubling the price of a vending booth, and now they're starting to milk the artists by making them pay as if they were vendors. So it really seems like, you know,
so they basically milked everybody.
Everyone. Yes. You know, it's like.
So why even attend then?
You know, it's almost like the classic "I'm going to cut my nose off to spite my face," you know, argument. Like, oh, I hate, you know, it's just unbelievable. You know.
And I guess the other thing to think about too, I guess, is there any really reason for that besides just increasing profit? Has the actual costs increased? Like I could say, well, maybe you could rationalize it if, well, you know, the convention hall now up their charges to host events, you know, so we got to pass that charge on by increasing things.
Yeah, you know,
I could see something like that perhaps, but if the costs remain basically the same, then or you know, all things being equal.
Exactly. My understanding of part of the problem is that the attendance has dipped relatively dramatically. So what's happening is they're needing to make the same amount of money on fewer attendees. So what's happening is they can't charge $30 anymore. They need to charge $60 because there's half the amount of players. So I think that's part of the issue, is that the GP attendance is down. But I think this is the absolute wrong way to fix the problem. It's going to increase the death spiral.
Exactly.
You know, if your attendance is down and you double the price, guess what's going to happen next year? It's going to be down even more.
Yeah, what are you going to do then? You know, charge even more? Well, that's not going to work.
You know, so it's exactly the wrong response. And I don't know what they're thinking at Channel Fireball. I don't know why you would do that. But, you know, maybe they've...
Maybe they're just after the short-term profit. I mean, maybe we'll just get as much as we can for now, and guess what? We'll wash our hands of it after this year, and we're out.
That could very well be. That may be what they're thinking.
I don't know.
Because it seems like very common business sense. Like, hey, we have dwindling customer base, so let's double the prices. You know, like, holy cow! I can't imagine a business where that actually would work.
That doesn't seem to make much sense.
Unless you dramatically change your product offering. You know, if you're going to double the price, you all of a sudden make it an exclusive event at a private location. Do you know what I'm saying? Not like a giant freaking GP. You're like, we're going to rent out a cruise ship.
The GP cruise.
The Magic Cruise.
Yeah.
You know, you do something special and charge an exclusive price. You know, that is the only way that by increasing revenue and decreasing your customer base can you make that work. You can't. They're just going to grind themselves down.
You really have to change your offering or
something. You can't give people the same garbage and double the price and expect them to swallow it. Nope.
Yeah, that's just doesn't make any
It's
sense.
not going to work.
Well, I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, obviously, I think you're absolutely correct. I mean, attendance is just going to keep dropping.
Yeah,
You're going to
absolutely.
get more, blowback from the artists and other people in the community, and it's just gonna
Blowback.
be worse because no
Exactly.
one's
It's a,
gonna
it's
want
a
to
it's a
go.
little death spiral there.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
really
Exactly.
just
I mean, I
penny-wise.
think I totally agree with you. I mean, I think they should, treat the artists as guests, pay for their airfare, pay for their hotel, or at least, discount it somehow. I mean, you're
Exactly.
asking these people to attend and, basically promote the event through them, use their name even,
Exactly.
and they're really getting nothing for it. Uh,
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's
uh,
funny. The list of artists was relatively extensive too that had signed on.
yeah, I know some
Yeah.
pretty good ones on there too.
Yeah. Yep. So it'll be curious to see if how that plays out.
And I know from our trips to GPs, I think we both, enjoyed visiting the artists and getting cards signed and buying prints and checking
Absolutely.
out what they had and talking with them. And, that was like an extra bonus of being at the GP.
Oh, absolutely.
It was fun. It was fun to look through
Yeah.
their stuff. And
It made it more than just like going to your regular locals and playing there. It made
exactly.
it something a little more special. So,
Yep. And to
yeah,
have like an actual print and it's signed by the actual artist and you feel, well, that's something special
something
that I have
special.
now,
Yeah.
you know?
I totally agree. I'm sitting here looking at them. They're stuck up on my wall right now, you
Yep.
know? So
And
I
I
appreciate it.
remember I remember when we used to go to a bunch of GPs and you could ask an artist to sign a card and they wouldn't bat an eye. They'd sign one card, they'd sign five cards, they'd sign 10 cards. And you didn't have to buy anything from them, you didn't have to tip them. It was fine.
Yeah, yeah.
They were fun. And then I remember, gosh, it's maybe been 3 years now, maybe a little bit more. I was at a GP and I went exclusively for the artist because it was an artist that I liked. I think it might have been the John Avon that was there, and maybe somebody else.
Oh, really?
And yeah, I wanted to get some of his stuff signed or whatever. And I went up to one of the other artists. He wasn't available, but someone else was there, I think. And I asked, can you sign this card? And they said, sure, sure. And they signed it. And then they're like, $1, please. And I said, what? I didn't understand what was
Yeah,
going
yeah.
on.
It was like you were confused.
I was confused because in the past it had always been basically free for getting things signed, and now it had jumped to $1 or more just for a signature per card. I think in some cases maybe you got like five for $1 or something, but I think the majority were $1 a card, which was, from going from free for
Yeah.
basically unlimited cards to $1 per card. I was immediately turned off. I'm fine getting, I understand that they want to make some money. Signing cards is a way to do it and all that. But I will say that definitely turned me off. $1 for a signature is kind of cheap.
I would agree. The only thing, just to play devil's advocate, is you've seen these people drop down fucking
I have.
200 cards,
I have.
and you're like, dude, what the hell are you trying to do? So, I think maybe they do that as a deterrent, but I think maybe a more reasonable approach would be if you have more than 10 cards to sign, you know, I would appreciate
Over
you
10
purchasing a
cents a
print or
crop
something
or
like that.
something. Yeah.
So that way,
That would be a better
because
solution.
otherwise that one guy's going to hold up the entire line of people. It's going to hold up the artist. It's going to. So I do understand that there should be limits in place, or just put up a little sign that says, maximum cards signed 10.
Yeah.
Be reasonable. I think it's a
Exactly.
little funny when you just go to like, no, $1 per card. I'll use that as my deterrent factor.
Yeah.
That may be a little bit over the top, and maybe they're just a little extra full of
Yeah,
themselves.
because I was just like, wow, I have 10 cards or whatever by this artist, and I'd like to get them signed, but heck, for $1, $10, and that's just for the signature. Forget about
Yeah,
if I wanted to buy a print or anything else. Well,
yeah.
gosh, I didn't really think it was going to cost that much. I guess maybe I'm just going to have one or two, my super most favorite ones signed, and then other than that, that's just not worth it to me.
Yeah.
And like you were saying, and I understand some people take advantage of this. I remember going to a comic book convention, and this guy, he was some younger handicapped kid, and I'm not to pick on him or anything like that, but he clearly was taking some advantage of the system because he came up to the artist, and he had a stack of maybe 100, literally 100 comics of the same one, the same exact comic,
Oh,
to get it
wow.
signed by this artist. And in cases like that, it's not like,
100%.
the one or two for my collector's purposes. This is 100 that I am getting signed that I will sell to make money off
Yeah.
of.
Yeah.
That is the purpose behind, such volume.
Yeah, yeah. So I can understand why they might want to limit the amount of cards they sign. But that just seems extra douchebaggy.
It
to
is.
me.
I mean, in that case, the artist did kind of scowl, but I think he felt that he was kind of locked in because he can't turn down this young kid, and
Yeah,
he
yeah.
was kind of in a corner on that one. But yeah, I think there's definitely maybe limits on that, but it still goes back to the whole thing that maybe that was a response to the costs getting cut and the benefits being cut as becoming not a guest anymore but a vendor. So
Yeah, maybe, maybe.
these spark these kind of additional pricing.
It would have been funny if after the guy signed the card and he was like, $1, please, and you were like, nah, and you just walked away and left the card. It would have been funny.
Like, you can keep the card. This is a
You can keep
common
it,
that
dude.
costs like 10 cents. I could have bought 10 of them for that price.
And it's not even about the dollar. It's just like the rudeness of it. You were like, wait, what?
Yeah, I was shocked. I was shocked.
That's funny.
Yeah, not used to that at all. But yeah,
Oh,
I think totally agreement. Support the artists and work out some fair compensation or fair deal for them.
exactly. Yeah. So, do we have any other news items that we want
I
to
think.
discuss?
Do we want to touch briefly on Ultimate Masters? The
Uh,
spoiling.
yeah, it seems as far as the financial aspect, that's what I'm a little more keyed up on
I
or
guess
aware of.
that, or if you want to touch where things are at as far as its finances, or just I know we got the full spoiler has been posted. We know
Well,
all the cards now that are going to be part of it.
yeah,
Did you have
pretty good.
any thoughts about it? Or any cards that you're excited about, or?
You know what? I think a lot of the set looks honestly pretty decent, which is good. Though I think they pulled out all the stops and at least a lot of the stops. I do know, excuse me, that the current value has settled between 275 and 285 on eBay, so that's kind of good.
Okay.
Supplies are still relatively flush; they can still be purchased for that price, and I do know that there has been a in my mind, surprisingly high demand for the boxes because they're selling robustly on eBay. And I know earlier, I want to say a week or two ago, Rudy from Alpha Investments offered and he's probably one of the largest YouTube channels. I think he's the second or the third largest. He offered his patrons boxes for 250, but you had to buy two at a time.
Okay.
And he sold 700 boxes in 26 minutes.
That's
So
pretty good.
his entire allocation was sold in less than a half an hour. And that to me is a little surprising because of the cost. I mean,
Sure.
so what that tells us is that demand for the product is high. As we talked about before, like Sports and More sold 4,000 boxes in a 26-hour period or something like that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can't
It's
remember.
crazy.
But they had sold 4,000 boxes in like a day, and which again, shocking when the price is $250.
Yeah.
And it just shows that there is demand there for very expensive products, which I'm a little perturbed about because I'm afraid that the success of such a product is going to promote WotC to do these kinds of high dollar packages again.
Yeah, yeah.
To refresh our listeners' memory that we had recently, that the guilds, what was it? The Guilds of Ravnica Premium Edition.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's
That
right.
debacle at Hasbro's website. But those were, I want to say, 250 a box as
Yep.
well.
Those are the ones where was it you got the special planeswalker that
Special
was
Planeswalker packs.
yeah,
8 packs were special out of that 24-pack box.
yeah.
And now the Ultimate Masters with their box toppers,
She was very gimmicky.
yeah, I just don't like the apparent move towards all these premium products.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
I'm afraid it signals their level of success with it indicates that they will do it again, because there's no reason for them not to.
Yeah,
Because guess
why
how
not?
much more it costs them to print Ultimate Masters versus Rivals of Ixalan. It
Yep.
costs them the exact same amount of money to print these cards, but in one version they make 3 times more money.
Yeah.
So why would you not do that as a company? I
Yep.
would. So,
Absolutely.
so
Yeah.
guess what? They will too. So,
Yeah, I think that's pretty safe bet on that one.
yeah. But so did I assume you took a look at the spoilers as
I
well?
did. I'll be honest. There's nothing that really jumps out to me. There's not like one card where I have to say, "Wow, I'm super happy they reprinted that card. I really, wanted that Lord of Extinction or Tarmogoyf or whatever." I don't know. I understand the appeal. There's a lot of good rares in there. There's a lot of good mythics in there. I like the new artwork on some of this stuff. I like the new Boggle. I like he looks pretty nice.
I always
Uh,
like Boggles.
I
Yeah,
I
I
think they were kind
always
of
like
cool.
them. Those and the oafs, I like those too.
Yeah, but on the whole, there
The
wasn't
homunculus.
like really one card or land or anything like that where it was like, wow, I've got to get it. A lot of these all to me personally as a collector and things that I'm looking for are nice to have cards, but nothing that I was really blown away by, I should say.
Fair point. They've got plenty of high dollar cards in here. You know what I do like is that they've got some nice rares, and they've got some heavy hitters in the rare slot, like the Noble Hierarch
Yep.
and even and I want to say, is Snappy printed at rare, or
Yep.
is he mythic? Oh, he's a
He
mythic. Okay.
is. Yeah.
Yeah. But so that I like when they have some value in the rare slots.
Yep.
The Reveillark and the Daybreak Coronet are kind of pricey. The Bridge from Below. I like when it's not all about the mythic
Mythics.
rares.
Yeah, I think and I think from what
The
I've seen
Demonic
as
Tutor.
far
Wow, they
as
printed that.
estimated values and things, that it's good. Everything is
Yeah.
good. The value is good. The mythics I think tended to be a little bit more of a range on that, with the higher value ones being lesser. What was it? Only a select few of the mythics are really the higher value ones. Um, but a greater dispersion in the rares for value.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I can't tell you how nice it would be to pull a Demonic Tutor out of a pack. That would bring me back to the last time they printed that. Was that revised?
yeah, I think
I
so.
think so.
Well, they've had so
The
many
good.
variations on it, though.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But it's still good. Still awesome.
It's still good. It's still good. Yeah, definitely. Um, yeah, I don't know. So, but I guess here's the big question too, and I've seen people's comments on this. Do you think the price is going to drop on the boxes? Maybe 1 to 2 months after official release.
You know, I don't think so. I think they will probably hold their price. I actually think they will climb slowly at first. And then a couple of years from now, probably two, they'll probably, wouldn't surprise me if they're like $400 boxes.
Yeah.
For a couple of reasons. Number one is that there are high demand mythics in them, high demand rares in them. Not just low supply cards, where they haven't been printed since Urza Saga,
Yeah.
but also just cards that people want. People want Snappy. People want Bitter Blossom. People want Tarmogoyf, Liliana the Veil.
Yeah.
People want these cards. these cards are evergreen when it comes to the value that they bring to the table. On top of that, cards at rare like Noble Hierarch, Vexing Devil, I love that card. Entomb,
Yep, great cards.
Demonic Tutor. These are cards that have they have demand, and
Sure.
so I think that'll keep I think that's going to insulate some of the product, I guess, the product diminishment. It'll keep that in check. And then when you throw on the box topper, in addition to all these reasonably good cards, I think that the Ultimate Masters booster boxes will not sink a few months after. I would actually suspect that they will climb, because what's going to happen is I think they're probably going to have the initial run. Then they may have a small second wave, like they did for the recent unstable, and then that's going to be it. They won't be reprinting it, and I think at that point, once the supply dries up, the demand is going to creep up almost instantly. So I don't think they'll drop. I think if you could get a box for between $250 and $265, I think you're probably going to be fine. I don't think they'll ever go below that price.
I'll have to keep my eyes out. I'm going to go the opposite direction, and I'm going to keep a look and see if they do drop after release, and maybe pick up something then. I've just been really kind of wary of this because, well, really the high price tag, honestly.
Yeah. If I can, I will buy probably boxes upon boxes if I can get them at $250. So if I can get them for that level or less, now that they've been the full spoilage has been happened, But I think I only have one box on order currently. I think I paid $262.
Okay.
So, but that was a little bit of a leap of faith, just because I didn't know what was in the set.
Sure.
Other than the box toppers. But we'll see. I think they'll go up. I'll pay attention as always to. I always pay attention to the sealed box prices, and if they dip, I will probably be a buyer at anything close to $250. So I also think sometimes whenever they make something for the first time, it's like, for example, these box toppers, which I feel is super gimmicky, and I'm not a fan. It's really the closest thing Wizards has ever done to selling singles to the players.
Exactly.
So it's very gimmicky. I don't like it. However, just because I don't like it doesn't mean it doesn't have value.
Exactly.
I have to try to separate my emotions from the value of the product. So it's the first time they've done this. It's the final supposed last master set.
Sure.
But they'll bring it back. They'll just call it something different. They'll call it who knows.
Yeah.
They'll come up with something.
Ultimate.
They'll call
collectors,
it exactly collector's edition.
Collector's edition classic.
Supremes.
Yeah.
They'll come up with some other name that they just won't call it Masters, but that's exactly what it'll be. So
absolutely. Well, we'll keep an eye on it and see where it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's probably about time for us to
move on to
some picks here. We're coming up on our 45-minute mark here.
Absolutely. I think just as you mentioned at the beginning of the episode, I think we wanted to get as far as picks, for the next couple episodes, I think we're going to focus on what our picks would be based on the next set coming out, which I think is the Ravnica Allegiance. And that's going to feature several, I guess, the remainder of the guilds that we have not seen yet.
That's right.
Which would be Simic, Gruul, Orzhov, Rakdos, Azorius, and Azorius.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
We've got a couple other guilds. Each of them have, mechanics specific to them. And I think we're going to concentrate first on Simic, which is green-blue. And
typically very counter-heavy guild.
Very counter-heavy. We're seeing a lot with the +1/+1 counters has been classic in Simic.
Yep, absolutely.
We had Evolve in the past. We had Graft in the past. We've had a lot of plus counters are all over the place, and we've got so many things that give counters. There's a lot of opportunities here, and I think it always comes up, and I think I should say, there's always a focus too on the tribes and whatnot, and I think we'll see that too as part of Simic. Especially where merfolk are concerned.
I was gonna say, you think it'll be the mer?
I think there's a lot of interest in the merfolk. I think people, whether it happens into reality or not, I think there's a lot of interest for wanting them to become big, wanting the merfolk to take off and really, become one of those top tribes, along with elves and goblins.
They're always close to breaking out. They're always like a tier 2, modern deck. That's typically mono blue merfolk, but
green, with the addition of the green, it's really powerful.
They're great, especially in standard.
I played a match on Arena earlier, and I had a mono red deck. The lowest casting cost I had in my hand was 3 mana, so I couldn't do anything until I had my 3 mana out. And my opponent was playing merfolk, green blue merfolk. He had 2 lands for the majority of the match. By turn 3, when I dropped my creature, he'd already taken my life down to 7, and he had 3 merfolk. He just had 3 merfolk. He had the speaker, and he had 2 of the +1/+1 to other merfolk.
Oh, the merfolk lords.
Yeah, and by turn 4, I was dead. I could not stop him because he dropped another lord and then another merfolk. So there's nothing I could do. He was just so fast and such a brutal combination that early.
Yeah, he had a nut draw is what he had.
Yeah. I mean, all I needed to do was get to turn 3 or 3 mana, because at 3 mana I could start casting everything in my hand, and I could stabilize. But
not enough time. Yeah,
too fast.
Those merfolk are great. I mean, I do enjoy them. I don't have a deck about them, but I've played against them, and they do seem quite potent. So certainly in standard, the green blue merfolks are quite fun.
Absolutely. I think some great cards there. Do you want to do maybe, we can continue this into next episode. Maybe you want to do 2 picks from 2 Simic picks?
Sure. Let's do it. My first pick is probably my I guess my highest priority pick, so to speak, or my highest level of confidence. And I freaking love this. I keep going back to this again and again and again. It's always about the lands for me. Mm-hmm. So I'm all about the Dominaria Simic land, the Hinterland Harbor.
Hinterland Harbor.
Yeah, it's just so freaking good. It's only been printed in Innistrad and Dominaria. That's it. You can currently get these cards for a little over $2, and between 2 and 3 for the Dominaria version. And you need to snap these bad boys up instantly. If you have any need to play Simic, you're going to need 4 of these things. Yep. And they are. I think they will creep up. I think there's only one way for them to go. Once the Simic Guild gets released, these cards are going up. So that's my number 1 pick, the Hinterland Harbor.
Hinterland Harbor.
It's kind of a boring pick because it is a land, but when it's all about the money, though, I got to go with what I know is going to work.
Yeah, no, I agree. We talked about that before, and I think that's a solid pick for what's coming up here.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of picks, so narrowing it down is going to be tough. So I'll do kind of the same. Maybe start with my top ones here first, and then I can talk about some of the others in the upcoming episodes.
And if you've got a couple of picks, you could always round it out. Like maybe you could have 2 and a bonus or something like that.
Yeah. The one good one I think that's probably a little bit underrated is the Beast Whisperer. He's from Guilds of Ravnica. He's a 2/3 elf druid for 4. Whenever you cast a creature spell, draw a card. I mean, we know that these are going to probably be creature-heavy decks, whether it be Merfolk or Elves or whatever else, some combination thereof, or maybe just larger creatures, more efficient creatures. Who knows? But casting a creature spell to draw a card is a great deal.
Yeah, seems good.
Card
Seems
draw
good.
in green is fairly uncommon. And this is pretty solid. And he's an elf to boot from whatever, bonuses he can get from that.
Absolutely.
Right now,
Absolutely.
going for about $1.
Yeah, you
Less.
can't beat that.
So I think he's definitely going to rise.
It's a good pick. I agree. Card draw in green is always very useful. It's hard to get. It just gives you gas.
Exactly. It just keeps you going.
Absolutely. My second pick is I'm almost positive this is one of your picks. This card is so
Probably.
good. It's so good, and it's I think this might have been an episode 2 pick for you, and it's in the Simic color, and it's one of these flip cards, and it's an enchantment. It's a legendary enchantment card.
I think I can guess.
Yeah, this card is so good. This is another card where I think there's only one way for it to go. My level of confidence in this pick is high, so I would, and that's why I'm going back to this well again. It's just so good. It's your Hadana's Climb.
Yeah.
Yeah. 3-mana enchantment says at the beginning of your turn or at the beginning of your combat, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. I mean, that all by itself is awesome.
Awesome.
And then once a creature has 3 more counters on it, you transform it, and it flips over into that land that adds a mana of any color to your pool, and then you can pay 3 mana to target creature gains +X/+X, where X is its power. So it's so good for $1.30. This card is again,
it's great.
I would consider a high priority pickup, and I hate to bogart on one of your previous picks, but it's just too good. I just couldn't pass it.
No, I think it definitely fits. For Simic, definitely is going to be coming. So
couldn't pass it up. It's $1.25 now, so buy them now.
Doesn't hurt to reiterate that.
Yeah.
That's definitely a good one. I feel like I should pick a card in blue since I talked about green. I got a couple blue picks here, but we talked about Merfolk, so I feel I should say something about Merfolk. I like this card. He's in some of my Merfolk deck. He is Kapala, the Warden of Waves. He's a legendary Merfolk. He's a 2/2. He's really I don't know, I'd say a Merfolk protector. Spells that opponents cast that target a Merfolk you control cost 2 more. Abilities that opponents activate to target your Merfolk cost 2 more. So he's going to protect all your Merfolk from, any sort of spell attack, basically, or ability attack.
Yeah, it's a really good card.
He could fit in any deck where there's Merfolk, because he can protect them. He's a wizard, so he's got that going for him, too. Maybe he can be in a wizard deck if you're going to go around wizards, which is
or even just that counter spell could be in the deck because of that thing. Because there's other Merfolk wizards, too. So.
Yep, there's a counter spell that the Wizard's Retort, I think it is.
Yep. Only pay 2 when you got a wizard in play.
Exactly. So he fits for that. He's just great protection for your
all around. Absolutely. Great card. I really like that one. That's a great card. I looked at that for in the mono blue Merfolk deck that I have for the modern deck. It's
exactly.
It's great. It's it takes the it could take the slot of the Kira the Great Glass Spinner, and but it's a Merfolk, so the Merfolk lords in that mono blue deck just would love having an extra Merfolk. So
sure, another Merfolk. I mean, he's protecting all your Merfolk. Forget about that murder or whatever. They're going to have to pay extra.
Yep.
So it's going to buy you a little bit more time, which you can then use to win, because you're not going to need a whole lot with the Merfolk.
That's right.
So, and he's going now for under $1. So.
Oh wow, that's a deal.
Great pick. He's like 60.
He's a rare.
66 cents or so. Yeah, he's a rare.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Excellent. I have a little bit of an update on a previous sell order, and I want to say this was this was one that you had sold, I believe, relatively early on in your guild's opening. But the Pelt Collector has
yeah,
he has tumbled. How far the mighty have fallen.
the pelt has fallen
He's
greatly.
close to $1 now. He's like
Wow.
$1.25. So
Wow.
that was the right call back in the day to sell the poor Pelty, because his pelt is considered worthless. That poor elf
He had
skin.
his moment, and it's
He
over.
sure did. Yeah. So that was
Yeah, 'cause I
interesting.
think what was his initial? What was he at his high?
Oh gosh,
He was
$16.
up to, yeah, about 15, 16. Yeah.
So yeah.
Wow.
So how the mighty have fallen.
Yeah. Just tumble. That just goes to show you that, things are always worth the most at their initial release or prior to it.
Very often prior. Yep, that's right.
And then after that, it just sinks like a rock.
In a lot of cases, it's really hard to choose that one card that's going to go up out of the whole set.
Yeah.
Yeah. But poor Pelty, he was not the one.
I think the Doom Whisperer is still living
Still living large.
Yeah. I think he's still in the low 20s last I saw. Yeah, well, about 18 or so. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's doing okay.
Yeah, you can get him near mint, 1564. Not it's creeping downward a little bit.
Yeah, he's flying a little lower.
Yep. It's still good.
Yeah. But I think we'll continue. I think our Simic review next episode. I know I can have some more to rattle off, and then we'll move into some of the other guilds.
Yeah, maybe we could do a wrap up and then move on to the Gruul or the. If we would get a little bit of, I guess, feedback, we could do whatever people chose. But so if anybody has any interest in any particular of the upcoming clans, we'd be happy to entertain that. So you could drop a comment on the SoundCloud or
Rakdos.
or
Rakdos for the win.
Yeah, even check out the website or even YouTube. If you want to leave a YouTube comment, we'll respond there. So basically, if you want to get in touch with us in any way, shape, or form, we are available, and we'll make it happen.
So just to recap too, so Devin's picks for Simic here, Hinterland Harbor and Hodama's Climb, and then I had to go with the Beast Whisperer and Kopala, Warden of the Waves. So definitely some solid picks for Simic, and more to come too.
Very good, very good.
Great. Well, I think with that, we'll continue this next time. Look at Simic, and then whatever other news comes up. And until then, may your picks always be profitable. We'll catch you guys later.